Have you ever come home, only to find you're not alone? Imagine the shock, the chilling realization that someone, or something, has been living in your house without your knowledge. Doors creak, shadows move on their own, and the mirror that should show your reflection reveals something far more terrifying. This is the story of Mark, whose ordinary life turned into a nightmare when he discovered she wasn't supposed to be in his house, but there she was. Will he escape her grasp? Or is he already trapped? Before we begin, don't forget to follow and support this channel for more real-life horror stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Now, let's dive into the chilling tale. It started with the kind of silence that doesn't feel peaceful. The kind that feels like the house is holding its breath. Mark Dalton hadn't lived alone in years. The divorce wasn't messy, just cold, like two people quietly agreeing to disappear from each other's lives. Lena took the apartment in the city. Mark moved into a modest two-story home in a quiet neighborhood just outside of town. It had a fenced yard, a little office for his freelance work, and more space than he really needed. At night, the place felt too big. He told himself it was just the adjustment. The hum of the fridge. The groan of the heating. The creaks in the walls. Normal house sounds. But 3 nights in, something changed. It was nearly 2 a.m., and Mark was finishing a project on his laptop in the living room. The lights were dim, a soft rain tapping against the windows. Then he heard it, a single, deliberate footstep, from upstairs. He froze. It wasn't the house settling. It wasn't the wind. It was slow. Heavy. Human. He waited. Nothing. Mark stood and grabbed the nearest thing that felt like protection, a metal flashlight. He crept up the stairs, heart pounding louder than his steps. The hallway was dark. His bedroom door was open, just like he left it. Bathroom door open. Guest room, same. He checked every corner. Every closet. Even under the bed. Nothing. Still, his skin crawled. He felt like he was being watched. Like someone had just been there and slipped out a second before he turned the light on. He didn't sleep the rest of the night. Just lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening for more sounds. The next morning, he convinced himself it had to be in his head. Stress. Isolation. Maybe he needed to call someone. A friend. His ex-someone. Instead, he just made coffee and went back to work. He didn't know it yet, but someone had been there. And they weren't done with him. They were just getting comfortable. It was raining again. Mark had always liked rain. It made the world quieter, calmer. But now, every drop against the windows just reminded him how alone he was in the house. How far the nearest neighbor lived. How the night seemed to go on forever. A week had passed since the footsteps. He tried not to think about it, but something felt off, subtle things. Like his coffee mug being in the sink when he didn't remember using it. Or the office chair slightly turned when he was sure he left it facing the desk. He told himself it was nothing. Maybe he was losing track of time. Maybe he just needed a full night's sleep. Then came the voice. It happened on a Tuesday night. Mark had just shut off the living room lights and was walking upstairs. Halfway up, he heard a soft, female whisper coming from behind him. At first, he thought it was the wind whistling through the vents. But the words were too clear. Delicate. Close. She said his name. Mark. He stopped cold. Turned around. No one was there. He stood on the steps for nearly a minute, eyes scanning the shadows at the bottom of the staircase. Nothing moved. He didn't breathe. He didn't blink. When he finally reached his bedroom, he locked the door. He hadn't done that before. The next day, he ordered an indoor camera from Amazon. A simple motion-activated model with night vision. He installed it on a shelf in the living room, facing the base of the stairs. Just for peace of mind. That night, he made sure the doors were locked. Every window sealed. He left the camera running and tried to sleep. He woke up at 4:10 a.m. heart racing. He didn't know why. There hadn't been a noise. No nightmare. Just a heavy sense that something was wrong. He got out of bed and checked the camera footage from the night. The motion alert showed activity at 2:47 a.m. He hit play. At first, the room was empty. Then, without sound, a figure came into view. A woman. Pale, hair hanging forward. She walked down the stairs slowly, almost drifting. Her face never turned toward the camera. She reached the bottom step, then stood completely still, as if listening. She stayed there for almost 2 full minutes. Then, just as silently, she turned and walked out of frame. Mark didn't move for a long time. He didn't know whether to cry or throw up. He played the clip again. There was no door opening. No window. No sign of how she got in. And worst of all, she never looked at the camera. Because maybe she already knew it was there. Mark didn't go back to sleep that night. He sat on the couch, blanket wrapped around him, eyes fixed on the staircase. Every creak in the walls, every gust of wind outside made him flinch. Morning couldn't come fast enough. At 8 a.m. sharp, he called the police. The responding officer was polite but skeptical. Mark showed him the footage. The cop watched the entire clip with a straight face, then asked the usual questions. Did he know the woman? Had anyone been in the house recently? Were there any signs of forced entry? There weren't. The officer said it could be a break-in, but without a name or a clearer image, there wasn't much they could do. He left Mark with a case number and a few safety tips. Mark didn't feel safer. He moved the camera to face the front door, bought a second one for the back. Ordered a set of smart locks. That afternoon, he walked the perimeter of the house, checking for anything unusual. Nothing. He told himself it was over. But then, a package arrived. It was sitting neatly on the welcome mat when he opened the door. No label. No tape. Just a plain brown box. Inside, wrapped in a thin piece of paper, was a photograph. Mark's heart stopped. It was a photo of him, asleep on the couch, blanket pulled up to his chin. The same position he'd been in just last night. Taken from inside the house. The back of the photo had a single message scribbled in black ink. I like when you're quiet. Mark stood frozen in the doorway, the box hanging from one hand. He felt exposed, like someone was watching him even now. He ran inside and checked the camera footage again. No alerts. No motion. That night, he didn't try to sleep. He just sat in the kitchen with the lights on, phone in his hand, thumb hovering over 911. At 1:33 a.m., his phone vibrated. A text message. Unknown number. He opened it. Why did you lock the basement door? Mark stared at the screen, blood draining from his face. He didn't have a basement. At least, he didn't think he did. Mark didn't move for almost a minute. The message just sat there on his screen, glowing softly in the dark kitchen. He tried to steady his breathing, to convince himself it was a sick joke. Maybe someone had cloned his number. Maybe the cops had missed something. Maybe he had. But the basement thing, it didn't make sense. This house didn't have one. The realtor never mentioned it. The blueprints he looked at during closing showed nothing beneath the main floor. Still, something had changed. Mark could feel it. That night he started pulling things apart. Not recklessly, methodically. He tapped on walls, checked behind cabinets. He moved furniture that hadn't been touched since the day he moved in. Hours passed. Nothing. Then, in the laundry room, he noticed something strange. Behind the washer and dryer, one section of the wall sounded hollow. Different. He moved the machines, shining his flashlight along the baseboard. A narrow line traced the shape of a door, almost invisible. It had no knob. No hinges. Just a small metal latch half covered in paint. Mark hesitated. He undid the latch and slowly pulled. The hidden panel opened with a low groan. Behind it, a dark wooden staircase led straight down into blackness. The air that came out was cold. Musty. Old. He didn't want to go down there. Every instinct screamed not to. But he did. Step by step, the flashlight barely cutting through the dark, Mark descended into the hidden basement. The stairs creaked beneath his weight. The deeper he went, the quieter the world above became, like sound itself didn't want to follow. At the bottom, there was a room. Concrete floor. Brick walls. A single light bulb hanging from the ceiling, but the pull cord was broken. He swept his light across the space. There was a mattress in the corner. Old. Stained. Next to it, a cracked handheld mirror propped up on a wooden crate, facing the stairs. Clothes piled in a corner. A small notebook, its cover smeared with something dark. Mark didn't touch anything. He just stood there staring. Someone had been living here. Below him. Watching him. And they had a clear view of the staircase the whole time. He backed out slowly. Climbed the steps. Shut the panel. Pushed the washer and dryer back into place. Then he locked the laundry room door and shoved a chair under the handle for good measure. It didn't matter what the realtor said. That wasn't a basement. It was a den. And he wasn't the only one who had called this house home. The day after he discovered the hidden basement, Mark tried to act normal. He showered. Made breakfast. Answered emails. But every time he passed the laundry room, a cold feeling sank deeper into his chest. He didn't open the door. He didn't even look at it. He just kept telling himself, as long as the chair stays where it is, she's not coming out. That was the deal he made in his head. But the house had other plans. It started small, again. The TV turned on by itself. Once. Then twice. Always to static. His laptop rebooted with an unfamiliar document open on the screen, a blank page with a single line typed at the top. "Why won't you talk to me?" Then there were the shoes. Mark had always kept them lying neatly by the door. That morning, one pair had been moved, one shoe standing at the base of the stairs, the other near the front window. Like someone had tried them on, and walked in opposite directions. Still, no forced entry. No alerts. Cameras caught nothing. But the worst was the smell. It crept in that evening, faint but sharp. Like metal and rot. It seemed to leak through the floorboards, especially near the laundry room. He sprayed air freshener. Lit candles. It didn't help. He barely slept. The next morning, Mark went to the hardware store. Bought a padlock, 3 deadbolts, and enough wood to seal the laundry door shut. When he returned home, the chair was still there. But the door behind it was slightly ajar. He froze. The chair hadn't fallen. It had been moved, carefully. Silently. Mark dropped everything and called the police again. This time, 2 officers came. They swept the house, top to bottom, including the hidden basement. The one with the mattress. The mirror. The notebook. Only now, the notebook was open. One of the cops flipped through it with a gloved hand. Pages filled with erratic handwriting, some of it just the same sentence repeated over and over. I was here first. They took it with them. Promised to escalate the case. Said they'd install a temporary patrol around the neighborhood. But Mark could tell they still didn't believe him. Not really. Before leaving, one of the officers said something strange. Something Mark couldn't shake. We checked every window. Every exit. There's no way in or out that wasn't already locked. But, he paused. The mattress was still warm. Mark didn't go to work that week. He told his manager he had the flu, but the truth was harder to explain. How could he tell someone he was afraid to leave his own home? That someone, or something, was still there, even if the police couldn't find her? That night, he covered the mirror in the basement with an old blanket. He hadn't dared touch it before. Something about the way it faced the staircase made him feel like it wasn't just reflecting light, but watching. Still, he needed to do something. To take some power back. The next morning, the blanket was folded neatly beside his bed. That's when Mark lost control. He spent the entire day tearing the house apart. Every drawer. Every closet. Every crevice. Searching for cameras, speakers, trapdoors, anything. He checked the attic, crawled under the porch, even unscrewed the vents. Nothing. That night, as the wind howled through the trees outside, he sat in the living room with every light in the house on. TV off. Phone fully charged. Hammer in his lap. Just in case. At 2:12 a.m., the lights went out. All of them. At once. Mark's phone lit up in his hand. Not a call. Not a text. The camera app, Live View, had opened on its own. The feed from the living room filled the screen. Only, he wasn't in the frame. Someone else was. A girl, standing just at the edge of the image. Long black hair. Bare feet. Her arms limp at her sides, her head tilted slightly as if listening. The screen trembled slightly, the footage flickering, but her outline never moved. Then the app crashed. Mark threw the phone across the room and grabbed his flashlight. It flickered as he crept toward the stairs, every step heavy. The house groaned like it was holding its breath. As he passed the hallway mirror, something caught his eye. He stopped. The mirror was dark, its surface clouded, almost like there was smoke trapped behind the glass. Then, as he leaned in closer, his own reflection blinked. Mark stumbled back, flashlight shaking. The mirror was still. Silent. But the reflection stayed wrong. The figure inside it didn't match him anymore. It was her. The girl from the camera. The girl from the basement. She stood behind the glass, unmoving, eyes wide open. And she was smiling. Mark covered the hallway mirror with a towel and duct-taped it in place. He didn't care how crazy it looked. He wasn't risking another glimpse of her. That smile had burned itself into his memory, too wide, too deliberate, as if she knew he was watching. And worse, wanted him to. He didn't sleep that night. By morning, something had changed again. Scratches. 3 long, jagged marks carved into the hallway wall, just outside his bedroom door. Deep enough to expose the drywall underneath, like someone had dragged sharp nails across it. He stared at them, heart pounding. Reached out. Touched them. The edges were rough. Fresh. He checked the footage from the hallway camera. From 3:06 to 3:07 a.m., the feed glitched, just 1 minute of static. When the picture returned, the scratches were already there. That afternoon, he had a locksmith come and reinforce every door. He installed door sensors, motion lights, even a panic button by his bed. The man didn't ask many questions, but Mark could tell he sensed the tension. He worked fast. As evening fell, Mark sat on the floor by the living room window, staring at the front yard. Then something outside caught his eye. Movement. A woman was standing at the end of the driveway, half hidden behind a tree. Too far to make out her face, but her posture was stiff. Still. Unnatural. He reached for his phone to zoom in, but the screen went black. Rebooting. When it came back, she was gone. Mark ran outside anyway. Cold air hit him like a wave. No one was there, but the gravel on the path had shifted. Fresh footprints, too small to be his, led up to the porch and stopped at the doormat. Something was underneath it. A single key. Not one of his. Mark didn't pick it up. He just stared at it, heart racing, then slowly backed into the house and locked the door behind him. He checked every window, every room, then turned off all the lights and sat in the dark. That night he dreamed of the mirror. He was standing in front of it, staring. But this time, his reflection didn't smile. It cried. Blood ran from its eyes. Its mouth moved silently, trying to speak. Then, behind it, she appeared. Her hand reached out, not from the reflection, but from behind him. The moment he turned around, he woke up drenched in sweat. In the silence of early morning he heard it. The soft sound of fingernails, dragging down the hallway wall again. Mark didn't wait for the sound to stop. He grabbed the hammer from beside his bed, turned on every light he passed, and marched down the hallway. But when he reached the wall, there was nothing. No girl. Just a new set of scratches, intersecting the old ones. Longer this time. Deeper. He didn't bother calling the police. What would he say? That a ghost was carving messages into his drywall? Instead, he poured coffee and sat in the living room until dawn, listening to the creaks and whispers of a house that felt more and more like a stranger. At 7:45 a.m., someone rang the doorbell. Mark jolted upright. No one ever came this early. He peeked through the peephole. A woman stood there, bundled in a gray coat. Mid-40s. Nervous eyes. She held something in her hands, a worn manila folder thick with papers. Mark cracked the door but didn't undo the chain. "Can I help you?" he asked. She gave him a careful look, then said, "You live here now?" He nodded slowly. "Yeah." "Who are you?" She hesitated. "My name is Claire Madden. My sister used to own this house." Mark frowned. "Wait, the previous owner? I thought." She disappeared. Claire cut in. "For years ago. No trace. The house was put up for sale after the probate cleared. They said she probably just left. Ran off." Mark's heart dropped. Claire held up the folder. "But I don't believe that. I never did. And I think she's still here." He let her in. They sat at the kitchen table. Claire opened the folder, revealing photos, handwritten notes, a copy of the house's floor plan. "There's something in this house," she whispered. "We always knew something wasn't right. My sister, Lena, she was scared of the mirrors. She kept covering them. Said she saw things. Said someone was trying to come through." Mark's hands tightened around his coffee cup. Claire pulled out a photograph. This was taken a few days before she vanished. She was documenting changes. The picture showed a mirror, the one in the hallway. But there was something strange in the reflection. A blurry figure. Standing just behind Lena. Mark swallowed hard. "I've seen her. That girl." Claire looked up sharply. "She talked about a girl. Said she lived in the walls. That the house wanted her to stay." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of it all pressing down. Then Claire leaned in and said quietly, "You need to get out. Now. Before she picks you." Mark shook his head slowly. "It's already too late." Behind them, the hallway light flickered, then died. And from upstairs, something began walking. Step by slow, dragging step. Mark and Claire froze. The footsteps above them were heavy. Slow. Not like someone walking casually, but like something looking for them. Hunting them. Claire's face drained of color. She whispered, "The attic. It always started in the attic." Mark stood, motioned for her to stay back, and crept toward the staircase. The hammer was still in his grip, but it suddenly felt useless, like he was bringing a toy to a war. Each step he climbed creaked under his weight. The upstairs hallway was empty. Lights still flickering from the surge. But the attic hatch in the ceiling? It was open. A thin rope ladder hung down, swaying gently. Mark had never opened it. His breath caught in his throat. He raised his flashlight, the beam shaking, and aimed it up the dark shaft. Nothing. Just dust, insulation, and wood beams. He reached for the ladder. But just as his fingers touched the rope, he heard it. A voice. Small. Whispered. Right behind his ear. "Don't go up there." He spun around. No one. Just hallway shadows. He backed away, eyes still locked on the attic opening, and hurried back downstairs. Claire looked at him, wide-eyed. "Did you hear her?" Mark nodded. "She's not just in the basement. She's everywhere." Claire opened the folder again and pulled out a drawing. A child's sketch in crayon, crude but chilling. A stick figure girl inside a house, surrounded by dark, swirling scribbles. And in the corner, a word written over and over. "Stay." "She used to draw these when we were little," Claire said. "Said there was a girl in the walls. We thought she was just making it up. But now—" A sharp knock interrupted her. They both jumped. Another knock. Louder this time. From the laundry room door. Mark felt every muscle in his body tighten. No one should be in there. He picked up the hammer again, walked to the laundry room, and stared at the door. It was still locked. But someone, or something, was knocking from the inside. "Get back," he told Claire. He unlocked the door, yanked it open, and aimed the flashlight down the basement stairs. Empty. He stepped inside slowly. The air was colder now. The mirror had fogged over again. And the chair, the one that had blocked the basement door, it was gone. Claire followed behind him, whispering, "We shouldn't be here." Mark stared into the mirror. At first, nothing. Then, behind their reflection, the shape began to form. Not the girl. This time, it was Lena. Pale. Hollow-eyed. She opened her mouth like she was screaming, but no sound came through. Then her hand slammed against the glass from inside. Claire screamed. Mark stumbled backward. The mirror began to crack. The cracks spiderwebbed across the mirror, sharp and fast, as if something was trying to break free. Mark grabbed Claire's arm, pulling her back up the stairs. The basement door slammed behind them with a deafening bang. They didn't stop running. Mark locked every door as they went, bolting themselves in the living room. His heart thundered in his chest. The house groaned around them like it was alive, breathing, watching. Outside, the wind rattled the windows. Shadows flickered in the corners of the room, twisting and stretching toward them. Claire pulled out her phone. No signal. Mark's hands shook. "We have to get out. Now." They made for the front door, but the lights went out again. The porch light blinked once and died. Something was standing on the porch. Mark's breath hitched. A figure, barely visible in the darkness, her long black hair tangled, eyes glowing faintly. The girl. Mark fumbled for the deadbolt, but the door handle wouldn't turn. Frozen, Claire whispered. She's not going to let us leave. Mark slammed his shoulder into the door. It didn't budge. Behind them, the house seemed to close in, walls creaking, floorboards shifting. Then a whisper, soft, almost sweet. Stay. Mark's vision blurred with fear and exhaustion. Suddenly, a crash from the basement shook the house. The mirrors shattered completely. A cold wind blew through the room, and for a moment, everything went silent. Then, in the quiet, Mark felt a hand brush against his shoulder. He spun around. No one was there. He didn't wait to find out if she was. Mark yanked the chain lock off, flung the door open, and sprinted down the driveway with Claire right behind him. The cold night air hit their faces, sharp and real. Mark didn't look back. As they disappeared into the darkness, the house stood still. Empty. Waiting.